What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are going to continue our coverage over the Trial of X era of X-Men comics. Now, when it comes to the Trial of X era of X-Men comics, we have to remember it takes place after the Hellfire Gala event. Now, the Hellfire Gala event was this big party that the mutant race actually threw to show other countries what the mutant race was able to accomplish in their short period of time being a nation. Now, with that being said, though, when it comes to Trial of X, it does take place after the Hellfire Gala event. Now, we actually do pick up with X-Force number 25 and 26 for today's video. Now, let me tell you something, guys. When I bought these two books got me. And the reason why I'm saying that, because on the cover of the 25th issue, it literally says X-Force going on its deadliest mission yet. And I'm kind of like, huh? What kind of mission is X-Force about to go on? Why is it so deadly? Because we have to remember, when it comes to X-Force, they're kind of like the Black Op group for COPPA, meaning that if COPPA has any kind of problems that need to be handled, like, killing some people on the side, you send in the X-Force team. Or if you want to handle a problem, but of course take care of that problem very secretly, you send in your Black Ops team, which is X-Force. And so I was really wondering what in the world is going on with X-Force if they're going on their most deadliest mission yet. And matter of fact, the opening pages of this book actually got me. And what I mean by that is we actually do pick up with Wolverine. Now, when we do see Wolverine right now meeting up with Forge. Now, usually when it comes to meeting up with Forge, most times you're getting some kind of weapon, some kind of armor from Forge. And so, to be honest, when I saw Wolverine going to talk to Forge, and thanks to that cover, I thought Wolverine was going to Forge for some kind of special weapon that X-Force is going to use on their next mission. Except I was wrong. It was really Forge making Wolverine a special kind of surfboard. And the reason why, because when it comes to Wolverine, apparently, he's a big time surfer. But on top of that, though, when it comes to the island, there are different parts of the island that get some crazy waves. And so for Wolverine, he's kind of like, listen, there have been some crazy waves, but I need a good surfboard. And so if I want to get a good surfboard, the one person I need to go to is Forge. And so Forge made Wolverine a very special surfboard. Now, before Wolverine left, Forge did tell Wolverine that he is also working on something else for Wolverine. We just have no idea what that something else actually is. But then we jump over to Kid Omega. Now remember, Kid Omega is the powerful psychic on the team. Now with that being said, though, right now you have Kid Omega going to see his girlfriend Phoebe. Now remember, when it comes to Phoebe, Phoebe is actually one of the Stepford Cuckoos. And the Stepford Cuckoos are actually clones of Emma Frost, but Emma Frost looks at them as her daughters. But on top of that, they're kind of like sisters to one another. Now, with that being said, though, when it comes to Phoebe, when she does see Kid Omega, she does remember that they did have a date today, but the way she's acting, you can already tell that something is up. Like she's about to dump the guy very soon because he's all happy to see her. He has plans for them. And the way she's talking, she's kind of like, yeah, I'll go on this date with you, but like, I got some bad news for you. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, it was so obvious that she was going to dump the guy after their date today. And we kind of find out that Kid Omega actually took Phoebe to the Bowery. Now, when it comes to the Bowery is technically where mutants are there to make more babies. And what I mean by that is, back in House of X and Power of X, we saw 3 laws being made. And one of those new laws were make more mutants, which means make more babies. And so this area is where you have the babies being made. And so you do have babies just being made left and right. And of course, this area takes care of them. And so Kid Omega brought Phoebe to this area to kind of check up on the babies. But getting back over to Wolverine, this is the moment where we actually do see Wolverine being a huge surfer, which honestly, I kind of like this for the character. And what I mean by that is it fits his bill, because when it comes to Wolverine, he's always doing crazy things. Now, I'm not calling surfing crazy, but I am saying that it is a tad bit dangerous because bad things could actually happen to you while you're surfing. But on top of that, Wolverine tells us when it comes to these waves right here, these waves could actually crush you. These waves could actually do some damage to you. Now, if you're just a regular person, you're dead just like that. Luckily for Wolverine, he does have a healing factor. Now, when it comes to the wave that he's riding right now, it totally takes him out. And he does get badly damaged, but we do see him right now falling deeper and deeper into the ocean until somebody does swim by and actually come by and save him and pulls him out of the ocean. But then we jump back over to Kid Omega and also Phoebe. Now, when we do, this is Kid Omega actually explaining to Phoebe why he came here to the Bowery. And the reason why, because he has a new job. Now, when I say a new job, I really mean more of he volunteered to help out. And the reason why I'm saying that, because when it comes to Kid Omega, he does point out the problem with the Bowery. So the Bowery does take care of new babies, because again, that law said make more mutants. But here's the big problem though, because you do have mutants making more babies, except some babies do get left behind by their parents. And so somebody has to take care of the babies that get left behind. And so what Kid Omega has been doing is been using his psychic abilities to calm the minds of the babies. And the main reason why, because some of these kids, their powers had already manifest. And that is huge, because usually when it comes to mutants, your powers come later on in life, when you're a teenager or a preteen, sometimes as an adult, but not really as a baby. It's very rare. And so when it comes to Kid Omega, he's all like, this one kid right here, Maximilian Max, his powers manifested right at a very young age. And so if he cries, his different kinds of powers could possibly do damage to us and other people around him. And so it's showing that sometimes babies, their powers can manifest just like that. And so that is why Kid Omega is using his powers to calm the minds of the babies, so that nothing bad truly happens. But then we jump over to Wolverine. Now, when we do, we actually see Wolverine right now waking up after being knocked out by that wave earlier. Now, when he wakes up, he is confronted by the person that had actually saved him, and that would be Pike. Now, when it comes to Pike, she does tell Wolverine that she's part of a crew of mutants that go around to tackle big waves around the world, like the one Wolverine had actually hit earlier. And so she's kind of like, hey, I saw you out there and I like what I saw. Now, because these two characters like surfing and apparently Wolverine is down to go with her to other places around the world to tackle other kinds of waves, this begins the idea of Wolverine kind of beginning to like her in a more romantic way. And so there is a connection there. And matter of fact, after he hangs out with her and her crew on some more big waves, they do hang out near a fire, and we do see Wolverine and Pike actually kiss one another. But then we jump over to Kid Omega. Now, this is Kid Omega right now in his bed sleeping and trying to enjoy a quiet night. Except the problem is, though, he is confronted by Phoebe. Now, Phoebe actually contacts him through her psychic ability, so right now they're having a psychic conversation. Either way, though, this is Phoebe coming to Kid Omega, and like I said earlier, breaking up with him. And the reason why, because when it comes to Kid Omega, sometimes when he's really excited or angry or feeling a different kind of emotion to the extreme level, other psychics can pick up on what he's feeling. And so when it came to Phoebe, she's kind of like, listen, because at the Bowery, I saw what was going on in your mind, because you were so excited. You were so happy to show me your new job, your new idea of volunteering to help those kids out, that I read your mind and I figured out what you wanted to do with me in the future, that you wanted to actually marry me, that you wanted to have children with me. And honestly, that was just too much for me. Like, I feel like you love me too much. You should love me just enough, but now you push it to another level. And so she's kind of saying that because he had idea of her and him being together, married and having kids, it was just too much for her. And so that's why they're breaking up. And for Kid Omega, this sucks because it's kind of like she couldn't even come to him face to face. She had to contact him with her psychic abilities. But here comes the big thing though, because while everybody is sleeping, kind of minding their business at the Bowery, we do see a group of characters in the process of actually kidnapping a group of babies from the Bowery. And this is huge because kind of like, wait a second, why in the world are these people stealing babies for? But then that is the moment we kind of find out that the group of people who are stealing the babies is the same group of people that hung out with Wolverine. And of course, Pike, their leader, is also there as well, which means that Wolverine's new crush is right now committing a crime. She's kidnapping a bunch of babies with the rest of her crew, and they then dive into the ocean to go somewhere else. And so, continuing on with X-Force number 26, we continue to follow Pike and her crew. Now, when we do see Pike and her crew actually go deeper into the ocean. Now, when they do go deeper into the ocean, they do go to their submarine. Now, when they get inside their submarine, that is the moment we kind of find out that they are actually working for somebody else. Now, we have no idea who they're working for, but we're going to find out at the very end of this book. Now, with that being said, you did have one of the kids' powers actually activated. And that right there is actually very important because you have to remember in the earlier parts of our video, Kid Omega said that when it comes to the babies from the Bowery, some of these babies, their powers had already manifested. But because they are babies, they truly cannot control their powers like a teenager or an adult can do. And so right now you have one of the babies begin to cry. And it seems like when he does cry, he does release some kind of sonic scream, where of course it does damage to his container, but also does damage to the submarine as well. And so right now you have Pike and her crew freaking out. Now her crewmate wants to kill off the baby, but Pike tell us no. We are not allowed to kill the babies at all because remember, he wants that child right there and maybe the other ones as well. Like apparently they're working for somebody that really wants these babies really bad. And so that is the moment where we jump over to Wolverine, Kid Omega, Black Tom, and Sage. Now, this is the moment where we kind of learn more about this area of COPPA. And the reason why I'm saying that because when it comes to Black Tom, he does point out that there are a lot of different parts of the island that are known as dead zones, which means that technically, if anybody wanted to sneak onto the island, they could do that. But here's the thing though, when it comes to the waves of COPPA, they're deadly, as we saw earlier with Wolverine. And so the question is though, how did Pike and her crew actually survive those waves? Because you have Black Tom and Sage say, those guys were not mutants at all, which means that they're regular humans. But then here's the problem. How can a regular human survive a wave like that, a wave that almost killed off Wolverine? And so that is the moment you have Wolverine say, because they're not human. Like apparently someone had created these creatures or these beings that are not human, but they're not mutant either. And so they were made to be able to sneak on the island to actually steal the babies. Now here's the thing though. Wolverine knows it was Pike and her crew. And so right now, Wolverine is kind of feeling some type of way because now he realized that his girl, or what he thought was going to be his girl down the road, and her crew had just kidnapped a bunch of babies. And so right now is Wolverine X-Force saying, we have to go get those babies back. But then Wolverine realized that something is wrong with Kid Omega. And because you do have Kid Omega kind of sitting on the sideline right now thinking of Phoebe, because this was actually Kid Omega's first breakup. Matter of fact, Phoebe was his first official girlfriend. Like, it's really hard for him to kind of say, oh my God, I had a girlfriend, I loved her, and I lost her. Like that was his first true love. And so right then and there, you do have Kid Omega just in his head, and he's constantly thinking about Phoebe. Now, you do have Wolverine kind of walk over, and Wolverine tries to give him love advice, which honestly is kind of like the worst thing Wolverine could do, because no offense to Wolverine, but like his love life technically sucks. Either way, though, you have Wolverine tell Kid Omega, listen, life is always going to pound you down. But here's the thing, when life gives you something you can pound back at, then you better start pounding at that thing to kind of release the anger that you're going through. Because yes, I understand you lost your girlfriend, but right now we have a job to do. And you can take your anger of the breakup out on the things we're about to fight at the bottom of the ocean as we get those babies back. And so you do have Wolverine kind of give Kid Omega that advice, and Kid is kind of like, that's some bad advice, but fine, whatever, I'll go with you. And so then you have X-Force actually go underwater. Now, when they do go underwater, they do try to look for Pike and her crew, which luckily they do find the submarine that belonged to Pike and her crew. The problem is, though, the submarine has been completely wrecked. Because remember earlier, that baby did use its powers as a way to break free, but it also caused a lot of damage to the ship they were actually on. And so with that being said, you do have X-Force kind of looking around trying to find any survivors. Now, they do find a dead body, but that dead body belongs to one of the crew members of Pike. But then they find two babies, and luckily those two babies survive. But then that is the moment you have Kid Omega say, we still got a problem. Maximilian is still missing, and so is Pike. Now, this is also the moment we come to find out that Maximilian was the one who caused all this damage to this ship. And so right now it's kind of like, okay, we do realize which baby is actually missing, and that baby is Maximilian. But the problem is, though, so is Pike, which means that Pike most likely has the child with her. Now, that is also the moment you have Kid Omega read the mind of Wolverine. And when Kid Omega does that, he gets very upset with Wolverine. And the reason why, because he realized that Wolverine truly cares for Pike a lot. And so he gets mad at Wolverine because earlier we saw Wolverine give Kid Omega advice. Now, when it came to Wolverine's advice, it was more kind of like, listen, love has its ups and downs. You just got to move on and forget about the love life. And of course, Kid Omega's kind of like, that's very hard to do. But when he reads the mind of Wolverine, he's kind of like, wait a second. How dare you tell me to move on from my love life, but here you are right now wishing that we're able to save this new woman that just came in your life, and you have no idea what she is or who she is, but we do know that she is a bad guy, which means that now you're trying to save her or trying to convert her into a good guy. But how dare you try to give me advice saying move on, love is love, you'll be okay, and here you are moping in your brain right now because you really care for this Pike person. You should take your own advice. But after that, we do see Kid Omega take the babies back to the Bowery. Because remember, when it comes to the Bowery, some of these babies do actually have parents there. And so with that being said, when he does bring the kids back over to the Bowery, the ones they found on Pike submarine, you do have some of these parents very happy to have their child back in their arms. But then that is the moment he is confronted by Jean Grey. Now, this is somewhat important because right now it's Jean Grey giving her version of love advice. Now, honestly, what Jean Grey is saying is kind of similar to Wolverine, kind of like you need to move on. But the thing is, what she's also adding on is that even though you did have a breakup with Phoebe and you're kind of worried that you two will never come back together, you don't know that. Like, honestly, you guys could come back together down the road. You may not. But at the same time, you cannot stop your life just for her and hoping that she'll come back. And so right now, it's Jean Grey saying like Wolverine did, you need to move on. But here's the thing, there is a possibility that she could come back into your arms and y'all could be a couple again down the road. And so getting over to Wolverine, we do see Wolverine being able to actually find Pike. The problem is though, Pike does not have Maximilian, the baby, which means that the baby was given to someone else. Now, here's the thing though, because you do have Wolverine kind of figure out where Pike would be at, because earlier in the storyline when they were talking and hanging out, she did mention about Alaska, how Alaska also has some crazy ways as well. And so he realized where she was going to be at. And so with that, you have Wolverine go to Alaska, he finds her, but then he realized she does not have the baby at all. But at the same time, this is still Wolverine wanting to actually save her, to kind of convert her into be a good guy. Now, while the two characters are actually talking, you do have Pike tell Wolverine that no, she's not human nor a mutant, that she was created for this particular mission by somebody, which means that she's just some kind of science experiment that came to life. Either way, though, it's still Wolverine saying, but I still felt some kind of connection, and I know you did too. But unfortunately, when it comes to Pike, she kind of feels like her job is done, like her life is done, because she was able to deliver the baby to the person that she's actually working for. So why must she live on? And so that is the moment you do have some big waves that actually come to Alaska, and you do have Wolverine heard how to ride the waves together. But the problem is though, Wolverine's still not that great of a surfer just yet. And so he does fall off, but he's luckily saved by Kid Omega. But then you have Kid Omega kind of give Wolverine advice, saying, listen, I kind of realize what you're trying to do here. You're trying to save her. You're trying to turn her into a good guy. But here's the thing though, you can't force what you want on somebody if they don't actually want it. Meaning that even though you want to save that person, unless they want to be saved, it's not going to work. And so you have Kid Omega and Wolverine actually watch Pike technically die because she does fall off her surfboard in one of the crazy waves in Alaska. And so we're left to believe that she died. But the question is though, where is Maximilian, the baby that she had kidnapped? And we kind of find out the baby is actually with the man with the peacock tattoo. And remember, this guy is one of the many leaders to Xeno, this new organization out there that is trying to get rid of the mutant nation. And so with that being said, it's kind of like, what are they planning to do with that baby? But either way, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.